Hi everyone, I'm Najwa Sidki. I'm a knowledge transfer manager for quantum technologies at KTN. And like I said, welcome to our webinar entitled Manufacturing Made Smarter with Quantum. So this is a webinar as part of my involvement in a program called Made Smarter, which is a 300 million initiative by Innovate UK, bringing digital innovation for manufacturing. So as already announced by Anita, a bit of housekeeping. This webinar is being currently recorded. You will be muted during the whole session of the presentation of our speakers until we open up for questions at 11:05. And you can use the chat function to post questions, introduce yourself, interact with other delegates. So you're welcome to do all of these in the chat menu. So a quick reminder of our agenda today. So the whole point of this webinar is trying to explain how quantum today is relevant to digital innovation, but is also relevant to manufacturing. So we're trying to bring these benefits, and we have a great lineup of very high profile speakers from both research and industry to explain what are the benefits of quantum technologies to manufacturing, and we will have an overview of the use cases of quantum in manufacturing. And finally, closing the presentations by a great set of pitches from quantum technology developers from both industry and research centers. And we will have a full 25 minutes to address the questions of the audience. So you can either type them in the chat box, or you will be allowed to unmute yourself and directly pose your questions to our speakers. And we have plenty of time to use for networking. We will have breakout rooms by organization for you to pose further questions and to network with our speakers and organizations today until 12:30, and a Meeting Mojo platform to set one-to-ones starting from 1 p.m. So I'm just dropping a few links, and my colleague Anita, who started the webinar, will be circulating our slides and the slides of the speakers. So just dropping a few links on our work on mapping the quantum landscape in the UK, but also across Europe. And there are ways to follow our work on KTN website, or to subscribe to our newsletter to know more about events and funding in quantum technologies in the UK, but also overseas. And you can also follow us on social media, Twitter and LinkedIn. So that's my part, and I'd like to call my colleague, Garen Jones, who's a knowledge transfer advisor at KTN, to tell you or to send a quick message about knowledge transfer partnerships and management knowledge transfer partnerships, as they're very relevant to build collaborations between different communities, for example, quantum and manufacturing, but also between research and industry. Over to you, Garen.
Thanks very much, Najwa. So I've just posted into the chat a couple of links there. I won't do a presentation, but as Najwa said, I'm involved with Knowledge Transfer Partnerships, which is an Innovate UK scheme, which links together forward-thinking businesses with a strategic need with the UK's world-class knowledge bases, so mainly universities, but also catapult centres and other research providers, to deliver innovation projects led by inspired graduates. So if you're a company with a strategic need, you know where you want to get to, where you might want to get to in 5 years, in 10 years, there's growth potential there. You might and you have a particular technology or process that you know going to need to embed within the company to achieve that strategy. One way of doing it might be to employ someone with those skills. Another way might be to employ someone for consultancy, but also you can have a KTP where someone called the associate is employed by university or knowledge base for between 1 and 3 years but embedded within your company to embed and transfer that particular technology. Total full cost of a KTP is around 80K a year. As an SME, so you get a discount for that, you'd pay about 30%. So under 30K a year for someone working full-time in your company with the added benefit of an academic team visiting half a day a week. Also, something for you to be aware of is a special flavor of KTP called management KTP. For that, still very people-focused scheme as KTP is generally, but it's designed to trigger culture change and can enable transformational improvement in your company by identifying strategic management-based initiatives that can increase your business resilience and agility and expand management effectiveness. So I won't be giving another presentation, but I will be available with Najwa in the KTN breakout room if you want to talk about KTPs, and also I've put my contact details also in the chat. So look forward to those of you who want to find out about KTP a bit later on today.
Thank you so much, Geraint. So we'll be kicking off our presentations this morning and starting our first session around the value of quantum to manufacturing. Our first speaker is Murray Tom, Vice President of Product Development of D-Wave Systems based in Canada. Unfortunately, due to the time zone, Murray wasn't able to join us live today, so he kindly recorded a presentation for us to explain about quantum annealing and how his work is relevant to manufacturing.
Hi, everyone. First off, I'd like to thank the folks at Manufacturing Made Smarter who invited me to come here and share some information with you about quantum computing, particularly in the context of manufacturing applications. My name is Murray Tom. I'm the Vice President of Product Management at D-Wave Systems. D-Wave is the practical quantum computing company. It's all about driving business value for our customers through the use of quantum computing, and we're the leader in the development and delivery of quantum computing systems, software, and services. My role at D-Wave has a lot to do with talking with customers and people in the field about what their needs are and what we can do, and setting our product roadmap to make sure that we're delivering value to those customers. So today I'm going to be talking to you about quantum computing and manufacturing. I just want to start off, no conversation is complete without first orienting ourselves. So a quantum computer, it really can be, if we strip away all of the detail, a quantum computer is basically like a computer chip. We reached inside our computers and we pulled into the chip, and then we went even deeper into the devices, and we found the fundamental building block of a classical computer, which is a transistor. Basically, it's like a light switch. If we change the nature of that device that forms that building block and allowed it to behave quantum mechanically, then we would have changed that processor to become a quantum processing unit. Now, the reason that we do that and what that enables is that once those building blocks become quantum mechanical, there's a few things that you can do with it that allow you to process information in a powerful way. One is that you can use that quantum state to store extra information. And I mean a lot of extra information. So you're processing over a lot more information than a classical computer could ever do. The second way to use it is to use those quantum properties and states to allow you to move between solutions really quickly. And I don't mean solutions like quantum solutions. I mean solutions like schedules or logistical plans or optimizing the workflow on the manufacturing floor. And those things have the potential to become very powerful. In fact, when I'm talking about moving through a certain number of solutions, I'm talking about more solutions than the estimated number of particles in the universe. And if that sounds a little crazy and kind of mind-blowing to you, that's because it is. And even quantum physicists themselves are struggling to explain and kind of comprehend how that's possible. But for right now, we can turn it into an engine and do useful work with it. Okay, so the next probably most important thing to cover is how would you or your teams be interacting with a quantum computer? And it's basically the way you would just like the way you would be with any other computer. You'd be programming on a laptop or a computer with your keyboard, programming in familiar languages like Python, and basically describing your problems and formulating your problems so that a quantum computer could accept them. And quantum computers right now, like the ones that D-Wave offers, are available in the cloud, which means that they have a programming interface. You keep your data to yourself and you send a problem that expresses what you want to optimize to that programming interface. And then the quantum computer and classical computers basically break that problem out, start working on it, pull pieces out for a quantum computer to reconfigure for you and put them back together and send you the solution back. So largely it's a lot like software development, modern software development today. So the next part is, okay, now we know what a quantum computer is essentially and how we would interact with it. Why are people choosing to interact with quantum computing? And my friends and family who work in manufacturing, logistics and scheduling, they don't often think of themselves as sort of waking up in the morning and be like, I want to use the most bleeding edge technology that's available in the world today. The reason that I'm here talking to you is because there are features of working with manufacturing and production, optimization and scheduling and logistics that classical computers really struggle with. And in fact, the people that I know working in the industry struggle with them as well. And there's strong reasons for that. They're very computationally complex. And fundamentally, what makes them suitable for quantum computers is the fact that events are either happening or they're not happening, and they're correlated with one another. So for instance, if you've got a manufacturing line and you speed up one of the components on the manufacturing line, that kind of has an impact on the rest of the manufacturing line. And usually it means that the material builds up before it can get processed at the next stage. And those are instances where, because you can't divide those things down to infinitesimally small amounts, because you've got resources that either arrive or leave your shipping dock or not, that's what classical computers struggle with. Okay, so the other reason why people are using quantum computers is in addition to the fact that they're very suitable for problems in manufacturing, is that their capabilities are growing very quickly. So in fact, they have the potential to scale really quickly, but we've actually observed that at D-Wave and quantum material simulation results, where in 2 product generations, we went from not being able to solve a particular problem in material simulation to becoming 3 million times faster than state-of-the-art classical implementations. And so a lot of folks are looking at that rapid change and saying, okay, I don't want to experience that kind of disruption in my industry. Can we start programming on hybrid systems and incorporate these into our applications to help us do better now? And the answer is absolutely we can. So, a survey was done that basically looked at 36% of CIOs working in the manufacturing industry who experienced some sort of disruption actually found that their operations have no longer maintained cost competitiveness. And for those CIOs, quantum computing is an essential tool in your toolbox. So with that, let me quickly pull up a couple of slides to show you some example use cases in manufacturing. So here's a list. I'm just going to leave this page up very briefly, and you can absolutely find out more information. But we're working with a variety of firms in this space. I'm going to dive into 3 in a little bit more specific detail. The first one, so I click my screen, is Volkswagen. So Volkswagen was actually one of the very first firms to start working on production use cases for quantum computers. And in fact, one of their examples where they were optimizing the flow of conference buses, moving people around a conference in Lisbon, Portugal in real time. So as the buses were driving the streets, they were making calls to quantum computers, optimizing the routes, and then returning it to the bus drivers live. So that is the technology readiness level of quantum computing today. You can literally run as part of a production workflow, making live calls to a quantum computer. From the learnings of that exercise, they actually looked at the manufacturing floor and found that there was a particular area of their production line where they were making paint color switches. And there was an opportunity to do an optimization there where they could reduce the number of paint color switches by changing the sort of virtual order in which they were constructing their cars. And when they did that, they managed to reduce the number of switches by 80%. So like a 5 times reduction in the number of paint color switches, which reduced their cost and reduced their waste. And the other interesting thing about this problem is that they were able to connect this and show that, in fact, in principle, these problems are mathematically proven to be exponentially difficult at scale, which means as they change and evolve and get larger, the compute resources you need to solve them get dramatically more complex, which is exactly why they were looking at using a quantum hybrid solution for for this application. Save On Foods is a mid-sized grocer in Western Canada. They operate a complex business across 3 million square kilometers in Western Canada. We worked with them to map an important grocery optimization problem. And in so doing, we managed to reduce the time to solutions from 25 hours down to 2 minutes. And if you think about that, if you're trying to optimize some aspect of your business and it takes you 25 hours, you've got to start way ahead of time. So being able to reduce that down to 2 minutes means that the information that they're now working with is actually much more contextual and relevant to the time when they're doing the work. So that kind of 500 times speed up has really been a fantastic use case. And we're really hoping to bring those into other areas of manufacturing. The last one is Denso, a major auto parts manufacturer in Japan. They started by also looking at traffic flow, but in particular, they were looking at manufacturing floors with autonomously guided vehicles, where they were routing them around, delivering materials at particular times to their manufacturing floor. And what was most important was making sure they never collided. So they were always optimizing for safety. And they re-optimized that using quantum technology and were able to reduce the waiting time by 15%. So unfortunately, I've only got a couple of minutes to share these with you. I wanted to leave you with a few links, places where you can find some more details about problems in manufacturing or contacting D-Wave. You can actually get access to these systems right now. And there's lots of resources available online. So I hope this will pique your interest. Yeah, it'll be exciting to work with many of you.
So for further questions to Murray, I will leave my contact details in the chat and you can forward your questions to Murray and we can take it from there. Our next speaker now is Imran Haq, Emerging Science and Technology Lead of the Pistoia Alliance, who will speak about the use of quantum technologies in the pharma industry. Over to you, Imran.
Thanks, Najwa. Yes, hi everybody. So I'll speak to you a little bit about what the Pistoia Alliance is doing to help the adoption of quantum computing into the pharmaceutical industry. I guess as we're a US-based non-profit organization, I'll give you a little bit of a flavor of what the Pistoia Alliance is. You've probably heard of us, but might not know what we do. So essentially, we're a pre-competitive framework that was established about 12, 13 years ago by several large pharma organizations. And this allows them to develop projects rapidly and quickly around areas of interest. And we end up developing frameworks, assessing areas that they might be interested in, or even delivering some small projects in areas of interest. And we also do lots of conferences on things that they might be interested in as well. We have 200 or so different members, but I guess the main meat of those, we have the 17 of the top 20 large pharma organizations. In my team itself, I'm the lead for emerging science and technology. So what I try to do is identify new technologies that have the potential for sector-wide use, and also the potential to transform life sciences R&D. So obviously, you know, quantum is one of those that's right up there in the sort of top right of this. And you know, I've got projects in microbiome and I'm looking at several other areas in this. But you know, if it's something that's pre-adoption, the pharma industry is trying to understand it. You know, I'm planning to, or hopefully looking at it within my team. In terms of quantum computing, so we did our, you know, a 2030 strategy report, and we had quantum computing down to produce a profound impact in the life sciences sector. And those who do adopt this are set to have an advantage compared to their competitors. So we developed a proposal for a community with several hopeful outcomes. So we wanted to educate our pharma companies on the opportunity for QC to bring efficiency and advantages. We wanted to identify key use cases that are amenable to QC, help them navigate the pathway to adoption, and also help support companies outside, providers, technology providers to come and help and understand our industry, to ensure that Pistoia Alliance members are positioned to deploy and gain value from this, and also facilitate collaboration between, that's our I guess generally what we do between our members, but to facilitate collaboration between people who join this community. So I guess how our communities come together, well, I've just said why we're doing it, but in this case, we decided to form the community in collaboration with other organizations. We formed it with QEDC and QFarm. We also now have QPark, which are a Japanese life sciences community that are focused on adoption of QC. And then what we do is continuously outreach for more members to join this community, and then we have a community of experts. And then what we do is we have regular meetings where we'll have people come and stand up and talk. It says 35 attendees, but we've got about 80 or so regular members to that community now. I guess one of the major things that came out of this in terms of our organization, the people that attend, is that we did a survey, and we found that the sort of most cited barrier is the lack of understanding of quantum computing and the ability to articulate valuable use cases. So, these individuals can't go back into their organization and say, this is what quantum does, this is what we can do with it. And I guess that's the first problem we're trying to tackle now. So, we've brought people together to listen to talks, but now we're starting to think about what are we going to do next. So the community itself is now going to come to, I guess we're calling it a summit. So we're bringing the community to really have a meeting next week to really understand about use cases, their adoption journey. So we've got several organizations speaking about the journey. So we'll have Chugard Pharma, we've got Roche, Janssen, Boehringer and Novo, who are all going to talk about specific use cases that they've been working on. And then we've also got McKinsey and Cambridge Quantum speaking as well. But what I'd hope at the start of the meeting is that we get, we have I'm going to try and poll and see, what was the understanding beforehand and what's the understanding afterwards. But also, it's the start of the transition to the next phase for this community of let's go and start doing some projects in the area. So there'll be, three sort of calls to action I'm going to have. I've got people who are interested in developing a sort of white paper document of the near-term use cases and how we could demonstrate these. I've got several of the pharmaceutical organizations asking to develop benchmarks and standards. So I'll ask for a boot to come out on that. And some others who are interested in specific projects. For example, I've been talking to some who are interested in looking to work on, predicting RNA folding, for example. So bring out project teams and start to develop projects within this area. So unusually for a Pistoia event, it's open to all, so you're all welcome to come along. But so this is I guess what we're doing to help the pharmaceutical industry adopt QC. Thanks.
Brilliant presentation, Imran. And as you have heard from Imran, there is an opportunity to join a free event exclusively open to everyone on quantum computing for pharma. I will be calling our next speaker now, who's Esperanza Cuenca Gomez, Head of Change Management at Quantum Strategy Institute. Over to you, Esperanza.
Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us, and also, of course, people at KTN for having me. And in my talk, I am going to address quantum for finance. And this is interesting in the sense that finance was one of the first industries where use cases for quantum were identified. And this poses the fundamental question of why is quantum important for finance? And to tackle this question, it's useful to think about what tasks quantum computers are good at, and where do we find these tasks in finance. And to end this talk, I will share with you some takeaways and final remarks. Let's get started then. What are quantum computers good at? Well, they are good for optimization. And before, Murray was speaking about D-Wave. What is interesting about some of D-Wave's machines is that they are quantum annealers. And this means some things, and amongst them is that they are quantum computers for the specific purpose of optimization. Regarding optimization, it is also interesting to highlight that it can be performed as well on gate-based quantum computers. Another realm in which quantum computers perform well is the realm of simulation. And before, we were hearing about quantum computing for pharma. Simulating, for example, the behavior of certain molecules, or also how a drug behaves, is interesting in the process of a drug discovery. And also in material science, it's an interesting use case. And then we have in the quantum realm, we also have machine learning, and we speak about quantum machine learning, and this is a very active area of research. There is a fourth domain, and this domain is ultra secure communications. For this domain, we need quantum computers and also quantum networks. Now, where do we find these tasks in finance? Well, regarding optimization, a canonical example is portfolio optimization. And for example, a Spanish bank, BBVA, in partnership with D-Wave, they did an example of portfolio optimization executed on D-Wave machines. More recently, JP Morgan released results regarding portfolio optimization using the HHL algorithm. And this was interesting because the results pointing towards advantage using the current noisy small scale computers, quantum computers that we have nowadays. In terms of simulations, well, in the financial industry, it's very interesting to see how financial markets behave under certain conditions and simulate these. And a company called Xanadu did work in this realm in 2018. And also in this domain, Monte Carlo simulation is widely used in the financial sector. And in the quantum case, we speak about quantum Monte Carlo simulation, and again, Spanish bank BBVA in partnership with Spectral Computing did work regarding simulation for credit valuation adjustments. This is an example of the use case. In the field of quantum machine learning and of course quantum machine learning, what it does is finding patterns. And this is interesting, for example, for fraud detection, particularly relevant in the case of the credit card industry, and also anti-money laundering. And one example of a company in the payments industry working in quantum computing is MasterCard. And we all can see why it's interesting for a company working in the payment industry to get insights about the patterns of behavior of people when making payments. And of course, ultra secure communication is a very important field for, I would say, all industry and of course for finance. And again, American bank, JP Morgan, is working in this area, specifically in quantum key distribution. So this is an overview of why quantum computing and quantum technologies are important in finance. Some takeaways on this is that optimization, simulation, machine learning, and ultra-secure communications are use cases of quantum for the financial sector. Some of the major players in the financial sector are already pursuing quantum technologies. And a personal opinion of mine is that technological advantage is probably the most crucial type of competitive advantage. And here I end my presentation, and over to you, Nadja, and thank you again so much.
Thank you so much, Esperanza, for the very insightful presentation. Again, how quantum is relevant to digital innovation in the finance sector and for financial markets. So we'll be starting our second session on use cases of quantum in manufacturing, kicking off with a presentation from Alan Devereaux, who he's representing Fujitsu today to talk about quantum readiness for manufacturing. Over to you, Alan.
Thank you, Najwa. So thank you everyone for this opportunity to speak to you today. My name is Ellen Deborah and I work for Fujitsu as a digital Annealer consultant. I want to quickly say a special thanks to my colleagues, Matthew and Josh, who are available in the Zoom chat to answer any questions throughout my presentation. And they also help me prepare all of the content you're going to see today. And I'll be giving a brief introduction to our technology, showing you a few manufacturing use cases, and I'll briefly talk to some other examples to wrap up. So, quantum is coming. You've heard that from everyone here today, and it's important to build a view of how it will impact your industry and company and how you can prepare to benefit from it. True universal quantum computing with general applicability is, anywhere from 5 to 15 years away, but it is coming, and elements of the capabilities are available right now in terms of encryption, quantum key distribution, and bridging technologies, again, that you've heard about already. We can use these practical examples to build readiness, create early value, and prepare to accelerate adoption. So Fujitsu's digital annealer, quick deep dive on the technology, is an example of a bridging technology. It's a standard silicon-based hardware. It's deliberately architected to work like a quantum annealer, but with greater capacity than currently available on quantum annealers. And it allows us to solve problems that were thought unsolvable without a quantum computer now. These are the types of combinatorial optimization problems that both Esperanza and Dio were discussing earlier. For combinatorial optimization problems, the digital annealer is faster and it's better than traditional computing standard solutions and the current quantum solutions available at the moment. Plus, the digital annealer is available right now on-premise or via the cloud. Critically, it gives you access to an aspect of quantum speedup now and is deliberately architected to be addressed like a quantum computer. So your work now will be reusable when more capable quantum computers become available. So a quick deep dive on 3 of our use cases within the manufacturing industry. Our first example, at BMW, we looked at the selecting of seam welding sequence for 3 robots, and we're able to determine a sequence that was 27 seconds quicker per car. Here, the existing supercomputer solution of 95 seconds took 40 hours to compute. Our 68-second solution was computed on our proof of value system in 3 minutes. In this case, BMW took the techniques used and applied them back to their existing infrastructure to get a 10-second improvement without having to undertake the work to integrate the digital annealer. as this was the line bottleneck. This allowed the possibility of a plant output increase without building a new factory. That was what they were looking at originally. In the next use case, we achieved faster job scheduling and rescheduling by considering the skills profiles of the workers, the requirements of the machines, and the tasks to be completed. This means as conditions change, the workforce can change with them, minimizing global production times and responding to machine failure or skill shortages as they occur in real time. This can also improve flexibility, batch sizes, and speed up shift startup opportunities. So considering problem of 40 different production jobs running on 20 machines, what's the best workflow to use your skilled workers on the right machines, keeping in mind all of the different complexities. When do shifts need to happen? How long can people work before a break, etc. A mathematically similar optimization problem to job scheduling is rostering, shift scheduling, and shift startup planning. Here we see an example where we were able to cover a shift that was previously calculated with 34 people using just 29, which frees up 5 other people for other tasks. This allows for instant re-optimization in case of leave, changing demand. Imagine one of your workers finishes a task early and another one finishes their task late. Instead of having to continue and let the early bit get lost and let the late person drag out the schedule, you can re-optimize constantly to take into account where people are and what's going on, who's got which tools, etc., so that you can constantly be working at optimal. The final use case today is optimization of picking items in a warehouse. Here we optimize the allocation of orders and the pick sequence to trolleys to reduce the overall picking time. So when you've got workers walking through a warehouse, they have a trolley and a set of orders that they need to pick. We're making sure that the orders that are allocated together are close together on the workshop floor, and that the sequence to pick the items is given to the pick walkers optimally. Here we're achieving around a 15 to 20% reduction in time needed to pick the orders. This means that more orders can be picked with the same number of staff members. And at the moment, there is a real worker shortage, so this is a really valuable gain. Similar problems to this are optimization of routing, deliveries, or supply chain movements across your supply chain. Here you can see a more broad aspect of our optimization use cases. Again, we've done portfolio optimization similar to the work Esperanza was talking to. You can see drug design similar to the work being discussed in the pharmaceutical industry earlier. But in this last section, I want to call out some wider examples. The US Army achieved an improvement of 90% in performance for the operation of their COVID-19 PPE supply efforts. That's it because we're able to balance different priorities within the digital annealer. Japan Post reduced their operation times by 30%, and there are so many others that I can talk to in the networking session later if they pique your interest. Finally, in Toyota, we identified supply chain performance improvements of 2 to 5% using the DA. Now that sounds small, but considering Toyota's 40-year heritage and single-minded focus on supply chain optimization, this is one of my favorite manufacturing credentials. So thank you so much for your time. I look forward to chatting to you further in the network event, and please do take some time to consider the threats and opportunities to your company that you can avoid so that you can avoid some bottlenecks in the future. Your business needs a quantum strategy, allowing it to build readiness now and get ahead of the quantum curve. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Ellen. This was really a brilliant presentation and really a wide overview of the different use cases. I was just amazed the BMW one and many more use cases you presented. I'm sure there will be plenty of questions and catch-ups during your breakout room later on, but also for our other speakers on how ready they are for quantum technologies and what are the opportunities for using them for manufacturing. So I'll be calling our next speaker now, David Armstrong, who's business development lead at Fraunhofer CAP, Center of Applied Photonics in Glasgow. Over to you, David.
Hi, thanks, Najwa, and thank you very much for the folks at KTN for making this event happen, both on a practical level and drawing together the audience. And on cue, my dog goes bananas. Just checking you can see my slides okay, Najwa?
Yes, they are.
Great. Okay, so a slight change of tack. We've heard some really compelling use cases for quantum computing in various sectors. The Fraunhofer Center for Applied Photonics is involved in quantum computing, not least because photonics is, if you like, an enabling technology for the manipulation and trapping of atoms and ions, as well as the distribution of quantum keys. But I'm going to concentrate a little bit more on, if you like, sensing, detecting things that otherwise would be difficult or impossible with conventional techniques. So I'm David Armstrong, and I'm from the Fraunhofer Center for Applied Photonics. Just quickly, if I can go down a slide, just quickly, we are a UK research and technology organisation, an RTO. We're a not-for-profit company. And we're part of the Fraunhofer Society, which is arguably Europe's leading independent research organisation. And what we do is we provide professional R&D services, although I'd emphasise D for development, for and with industry, really sort of accelerating innovation, if you like, from the realm of academia into the real world. And we build systems, work with industry to build systems that have been field deployed. For example, so we're that bridging link, if you like, between academia and the real world. So in terms of TRL levels, we can take something that is, if you like, your classic quantum benchtop system, lots of components, very complex. We can engineer this up into a proof of concept system that you can actually perhaps place in the back of a car, take somewhere, and ultimately work with people to produce products that are commercially available in the quantum realm. So we bridge that valley of death, as it were. So in terms of quantum for manufacturing, what can quantum do for you apart from the huge benefits of quantum computing, for example? Well, slightly random list, but it can sense things, it can image things, it can detect things, and it can tell where you are using techniques that are not readily available or possible indeed in using sort of classical physics, as it were. And these can provide quite significant tools, I would imagine, for the manufacturing sector going forward. So if I can talk just initially about quantum sensing, I'm going to rattle through a lot of techniques and a lot of words, but the takeaway is there's a whole realm here that you can take advantage of. So, for example, magnetic field sensing, there are a couple of quantum techniques that can be applied here, one using diamond NV centers, another one atomic vapors. But without going into details, both can give you an ability to detect magnetic fields that you cannot detect really using conventional techniques. And I'll come back later in terms of some very practical applications for magnetic field sensing. Gravimetry, for example, there's a large UK program just winding up on the Pioneer Gravity project, which is detecting, if you like, voids underground. So if you're trying to dig up a street and you think you have a plan and it tells you your water main is below your feet, well, quite frequently that water main is not where you think it's going to be. And you dig a hole, you find it's not there, and then you have to dig another hole. It's terribly unproductive. Well, there are quantum techniques and quantum devices that can, if you like, measure the absence of material, the void underground, that can allow you to dig the hole in the right place, or it can allow you to examine a field, if you like, well, literally a field, for future development, and know, is there a mine working under there that was not in the plans, if you like. So gravimetry is quantum techniques for gravimetry are coming along. Indeed, people are working on, can you put these quantum gravimetry devices in boreholes? Can you use it for sensing, perhaps if you're prospecting for minerals or oil or what have you? Finally, composition analysis. There are a number of techniques which can be enhanced using quantum techniques for composition analysis. I'll actually talk about one specifically later on. So that's, if you like, quantum sensing, a slightly arbitrary definition. Quantum imaging. Now, Christopher from Quantic is going to be talking later, and he will be able to talk much better than I can about quantum imaging. But essentially what we're talking about here is seeing the otherwise invisible. So imaging and sensing through obscuration, for example, seeing things that you would not otherwise be able to see through. The classic examples would be dust, for example. So I'm imagining in manufacturing techniques in situations where you have less than perfect conditions. These techniques might enable you to image through obscuration, and there are a whole number of, if you like, weird and wonderful quantum techniques that allow you to observe things using photons. Sometimes when you have two photons going out, which are related to one another in some manner, and you can detect what's happening to one of those photons through another one of another photon. It's a related photon, if you like, but using more conventional detection techniques. But anyway, Quantic are very much one of the UK quantum technology hubs, are very much active in this area, as are we. I would just like to maybe a specific example is quantum and arguably quantum enhanced detection. One example is Raman spectroscopy, which is I think extensively used in the pharmaceutical industry already, but there are ways in which you can enhance, if you like, Raman spectroscopy using quantum techniques. So here, if we have, and I'm not going to give, if you like, a tutorial on Raman spectroscopy, but essentially you detect light at various wavelengths, and you end up with if you like, a spectrum that's characteristic of the material. So this is ethanol standard. This is, if you like, the library spectrum for ethanol. And if you do Raman characterization, in this case of whiskey, and we chose Talisker whiskey in this case. So you can see that the Raman signal is just peaks. There's a little peak there that is very much obscured by a very strong background level. So you can just about see the peak. Now you can employ quantum techniques to get rid of that background. And what you have is this blue line, which is much cleaner, and you can see far more detail. In fact, you can see some peaks here. They would otherwise be incredibly difficult to detect on the background. So this is a practical application. It's actually using single photon avalanche diode SPADs, which is one of the tools in the toolkit for potentially quantum detection. And it's something we've been involved with quite heavily. And essentially what it does is these SPADs can detect single photons, which is remarkable in itself, just a single photon of light. And furthermore, they can give you the timing of that photon. When did that photon arrive at my detector? So we can actually get through that technique, actually get rid of the background signal. So it's not necessarily the exemplar, if you like, but it's a very practical example of how you can enhance a technique that already exists using quantum technology. In terms of situational awareness, the question, where am I precisely, without necessarily having access to GPS signals. There are circumstances, I believe, in manufacturing where you may not have adequate access to GPS signals. So inertial navigation or quantum enhanced navigation is a technique that can be brought to bear here. And there are projects ongoing in the UK and elsewhere, for example, in using quantum techniques for navigation. So this is navigation without recourse to GPS. And in fact, I think sometime next year, we are likely to be doing field trials of a quantum inertial navigation system on an aircraft in the UK. So specific examples, really from the UK programme, there's a couple. So you'll be aware that the UK has an extensive quantum technology programme, and one of the things it's been emphasising is, if you like, practical applications of quantum, and if you like, bringing industry as partners into a lot of these projects, and we've been involved in very many of them. So, for example, I mentioned earlier magnetic field sensing. It sounds maybe a little bit esoteric, but there's a project ongoing in terms of using these magnetic field sensors for detecting current flows in lithium battery cells. So we're talking, you know, the really growing battery manufacturing sector, and using the very sensitive quantum techniques to detect the current flows. And this is in a production line environment. And this has been led by one of the large battery companies in the UK. I'll also talk about, well, worth mentioning, terahertz imaging, not necessarily in and of itself a quantum technique, but there are quantum aspects and quantum tools, if you like. They can make this terahertz imaging far more accessible by actually allowing the imaging part of the technique to be performed using visible detectors, so much simpler and much easier to use detectors. And there's a current project with Quantico, led by Unitive, but has Procter & Gamble on board, if you like. So they're seeing the advantages, if you like, of a more usable terahertz imaging platform. So that's a very quick run through. So some techniques. I've thrown some words at you in terms of magnetic field imaging, gravimetry, seeing the invisible, and working out where you are in the world. In terms of photonics, more broadly, there are opportunities for imaging, for communication, for illumination, for example, that can be brought to bear in the sector. I'll be happy to talk with anyone later on if they have the time, in terms of, if you like, the quantum sensing piece in addition to computing. So thank you, Najwa.
Thank you so much, David. That was really a brilliant overview of the different capabilities in the realm of quantum imaging and sensing, and you brought up a lot of pertinent use cases there. So now we'll be moving on to our pitches, and while you're wondering, how can I get access to an industrial partner or research partner who has that capability of developing an actual quantum tech? And of course, we heard plenty from other speakers on that as well. We have a great lineup of pitches from two quantum startups here in the UK, and also two big quantum research centers, kicking off with Optical and Mirella Koleva, who very bravely joined us from Chicago time zone this morning. So it is very, very early in Chicago right now. So Mirella Koleva, CEO and co-founder of Optical. Over to you, Mirella.
Thank you so much for the introduction, Najwa. So glad to be joining everybody from Chicago today, where it's 5 a.m. currently. So my name is Mirella Koleva. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Optical, and we are a software company that is making a pioneering quantum-enabled design automation tool for quantum photonics applications. So we design single photon sources, qubits, and quantum logic gates and other subsystems of quantum computers and quantum communication. And our software suite is called Quantillion. So I'm going to tell you a bit more about this. So there are several different competing technology platforms for building quantum computers, and out of these, photonics is probably the most promising, as transmission of information at the speed of light. Transmission of the information is happening at the speed of light, and the architecture lends itself to being scaled up by taking advantage of the mature semiconductor industry. And the fact that the major players in the quantum startup landscape are building universal quantum computers running on light speaks for itself and really lends weight to this conjecture. Now, back in the 70s, when Intel designed the iconic 8086 microprocessor chip, it took them several months using paper and pencils and calculators. And today, quantum photonic computing is at the same stage. And what we at Quantopticon are doing for quantum, we are doing for quantum computers, photonic quantum computers, what electronic CAD tools did for traditional computers. Now, we all believe that quantum technologies are going to have a huge impact on our lives, and this is not the problem. The problem is actually designing quantum components and logic circuits in a timely, cost-effective fashion. And if you were to do this today, you would need to carry out multiple complex and expensive and time-consuming experiments that are reliant on trial and error. And so we solve this problem by completely eliminating the need to conduct these iterative experiments by replacing them with simulations, parameter sweep simulations. And Quantillion, our pioneering software suite, thus shortens the timeline to an optimized component by 92%, thereby saving up to 90% of the budget that is typically allocated to prototyping. Our software implements an accurate proprietary quantum mechanical theory that renders a realistic model of the quantum device. The theory was conceived and developed by Dr. Gabi Slavcheva, who is a respected theoretical physicist, and she developed it from scratch. She is a long-standing international leader in the theory and modeling of light-matter interactions and has published many papers demonstrating the utility and validity of the algorithm. Gabi is actually our chief scientific officer and brings to our company over 15 years of expertise in the area. So traditionally, an initial blueprint of the quantum optical component is generated using classical multiphysics software like Lumerical and quantum freeware like QTIP. However, since they employ physical models that are incomplete and inadequate for this purpose, these provide poor predictions of the outcome. Now, Quantillion outperforms these simulators by providing the most complete and accurate physical description, enabling it to make correct predictions about the quantum behavior of the device in question. So currently, we are able to offer 1D and 2D modeling toolboxes in the form of a standalone software application, and we have protected our unique IP, our unique algorithm with 5 pending patents around the world. So Quantillion is proven technology, and we have been working with all of these partners shown here, which are located in various countries, to develop and improve our software and to expand its capabilities. And we are pleased to announce that the European Space Agency has given us a vote of confidence recently by awarding us a contract to develop the quantum emitters of the first European quantum encryption satellite. We are collaborating with world-leading experimental research groups in quantum optoelectronics and photonic quantum engineering at the University of Oxford and Technical University of Munich. And together we will deliver a single photon source with nearly unity, indistinguishability, and photon purity, which will be crucial for attaining high bandwidth quantum communications and closing the loopholes on the hackability of the system. So if what I have said thus far has resonated with you, you can reach out to me anytime on info@quantopticon.co.uk so we can discuss your application and how we can best help you. Otherwise, you can meet me later in the breakout room during the network session, where I'll be happy to answer your questions. So thank you very much for listening, and I look forward to connecting with you.
Thank you so much, Mirella. So more on Quantopticon, as Mirella said, you can catch her up at the breakout room. And also, again, well done, Mirella, for the contract with the European Space Agency. So moving on to another pitch from an amazing quantum startups I have the pleasure to work with, Quantum Dice. And I'm calling Rami Shelbaya, CEO and co-founder of Quantum Dice, on how to achieve cybersecurity and secure systems. Over to you, Rami.
Thank you very much, Najwa, and thank you very much for inviting me today. So I'm just going to share my screen. All right, so good morning, everybody. And yeah, so today we heard a lot about how amazing companies are doing to use quantum to make manufacturing smarter. I would like to take a little bit of a detour and talk to you about how we can use quantum to make manufacturing more secure. So our Quantum Dice at Quantum Dice, our goal is to secure a connected future. Now, everything right now is incredibly connected. Now, this has been an amazing achievement and amazing advancement. It has made our lives so much more convenient. I mean, it allows us to have events like this from the comfort of our own homes. However, this has also introduced a lot of vulnerabilities. So IBM last year estimated that the global average cost of a single data breach was around $3.9 million. Now, this cost was consistent in 2019 and has been increasing over the past decade. And for that reason, protecting our data against unwanted access, encrypting it, has become one of the most important tasks of modern day computing. Now, no matter how good an encryption algorithm is, it's only really as good as its fundamental building blocks. And one of the most important building blocks of any encryption system, whether it's classical or quantum, is a good source of random numbers. Now, the vast majority of random numbers around the world right now are generated either via pseudo-random number generators or what are called classical true random number generators. Now, the problem is both of these systems have shown time and time again that they are vulnerable to a wide variety of attacks. So a lot of people have looked at using quantum processes, the only processes that we know of that are actually truly random, to generate secure random numbers. The problem is it's a very difficult task to do in a verified way, because any quantum system that you try to implement is going to come with a lot of physical imperfections that can affect what the signal you get out looks like. And at Quantum Dice, we're aiming to address that exact problem. So we're using quantum photonics to generate verified truly random numbers. Now, these are continuously verified. We make no underlying assumption on the source of the system. So we continuously verify that at every given moment, we're only extracting as much randomness as is actually available from the quantum process. This makes us resilient against hardware attacks on the source. And we can do all of that while outputting at a world-leading generation rate with a very simple architecture that can be readily miniaturized to be on an on-chip system. Now, we call this protocol the Source Device Independent Self-Certification Protocol. It's a very long sentence filled with a lot of jargon, so I'm just going to shorten it to say DISC. So DISC is a protocol that was developed right here at the University of Oxford, and it's patented. And the patent is licensed exclusively and perpetually to Quantum Dice, as we are a spin-out from the university. And the main goal of DISC is that, as I explained, it takes all of these various signals that come from an actual physical implementation of a quantum process and distills it into a true random signal that can be used in security applications. Now, as I said, this protects against the hardware-based attacks, but it also prevents the silent failure problem that plagues a lot of electronic components used in security. And it enables an integrated design, which then allows for cost efficiency. If we take a look a little bit at the market, now there are out there commercially available quantum random number generators, such as the devices from ID Quantique and Quintessence Labs. But there is no commercially available QRNG that has the same self-certification that our system offers, making us uniquely secure on the market. Now, other research institutes and companies are looking into similar self-certification techniques. However, so far, every other proposed technique is either too expensive or needs components that are too large, and more often than not, it ends up being both. Now, at the moment, even though our company is fairly young, we have multiple current active case studies where we integrate our systems into either classical encryption systems, such as with telecommunication operators and with hardware encryption providers, or with post-quantum QKD systems, such as our ongoing project to integrate our QRNG into a satellite QKD system that's being developed right here in the UK, making our system one of the first space-qualified QRNGs out there. And for a more classical mode, we're actually looking at integrating our system into the hardware encryption infrastructure that is used everywhere right now in the supply chains for things like IoT devices or for more enterprise-grade security, such as hardware security modules. Now, over that short time, we've also been privileged to be awarded multiple different awards over the past year and a half, including most recently, we've been awarded the Institute of Physics Business Startup Award in 2021 in recognition of the benefits that our protocol can bring to a digital world. Now, the team behind these amazing achievements were our 5 co-founders, as well as a team of 5 engineers that are looking to bring the amazing advancements that have happened in physics over the past couple of decades right out from the lab and into the hands of the consumer. And to do that, we're always looking for innovative and forward-thinking project partners who are looking to integrate quantum assured security into their infrastructure. And also, because we're currently expanding our team, we're looking to hire engineers and physicists. So if you know anybody who's looking, please get in touch. And at this point, I'd like to thank you all for listening. And if you would like to discuss a little bit more about how our product can bring advantages to your systems, well, you can reach me by email, and I would love to tell you a little bit more about our offering. And thanks again for the KTN team for organizing this and for inviting me today.
Thank you so much, Rami, for being with us today. What a great achievement by Quantum Dice. I'm always amazed by what you do, guys. So more on Quantum Dice technology, and you can catch up with Rami later on when we open up for the breakout rooms. So our next pitch is from Christopher Payne-Dwyer, who's business development lead at Quantique, the UK quantum technology hub for quantum enhanced imaging. Over to you, Chris.
Morning, thank you very much. Hopefully everyone can hear me and see my slides okay. It's a nice November morning, a bit chilly up here in Glasgow nonetheless. So I'm here representing in many ways, not just Quantique, but the UK national programme on quantum technologies. So I'm happy to be here in that regard. The national programme is a £1 billion investment by the UK government to look at quantum technologies. And we cover all the bases really in terms of quantum computing, sensing, communications, and what you'll hopefully learn a lot more about today, which is quantum imaging. So as mentioned previously, I head up the business development and do a lot of strategy for Quantique. So hopefully at the end of this, you'll have a better idea of what quantum imaging means and what it can sort of deliver for the applications of manufacturing and other use cases and such like. And also thank you for David for pointing out some of the things that we'll talk further on in the presentation. Good crossovers there. So in terms of Quantique, one of the main things that we do is we do development of detector technologies. So this is a single photon detector, commonly referred to in the industry as a SPAD. So unlike your conventional camera systems, which need millions of photons per frame to get an electrical signal big enough to generate your pixels, we can look at single photons, which gives us a lot of capabilities in that regard. We also develop detectors which may be cheaper to run and have higher efficiencies, quantum efficiencies, and things like the mid-infrared and near-infrared, which is particularly useful for a number of applications, such as thermal imaging, communications. Some of these detectors are used in data centers on the other end or either end of your fiber optic cables, and in applications such as LiDAR and such like, which has various uses in manufacturing and automotive and such like. Another aspect that we do a lot of work in within Quantique and quantum imaging is on optics. So this particular image here is a non-linear optic. This is where a lot of the quantum nature of photons come in. We can have a good play around here in terms of producing our entangled photons. The other really exciting thing about this sort of technology is we can do wavelength conversion. So most people, you sort of assume that a photon is what it is. It's fairly sort of static and finite in nature. You have an infrared source of light, you have a visible source of light, you have an ultraviolet source of light, but actually we can jump between them to a certain extent. So we can shift our wavelengths from one to the other. So there are a lot of interesting applications here. So you can imagine in the future, you might have something that is visible in the infrared. So your greenhouse gases, for example, or plenty of communication applications and such like, and you want to take a photo of that using your conventional iPhone camera. Well, if you can convert between infrared and visible, then that becomes a possibility. So a lot of interesting applications in these optics. Another interesting area that we do a lot of work within Quantic is on structured light and computational sort of side of imaging. So this is where we can again tie into some of the other advantages seen in quantum computing and such like, and we can really progress in a hybrid format. You know, these applications can work for quantum-based imaging, but also conventional-based imaging. So we can sort of jump between the two. So we're improving our existing technologies as well as the future technologies sort of coming out. And again, with improvements in our detectors and optics, we can really push this to new levels. So a bit more on this a little bit later. So let's talk about some sort of use case examples. So here's a very topical one. So Quantic was presenting this at COP26. This is a methane imaging camera. So we're able to directly image methane at ranges of up to about 100 meters away. This is in full live video stream. We can compare against a color image background. It's portable, you can stick it on a drone and such like. And this is one example of how you can use quantum imaging to achieve these results. There is another example, which is with a spin-out company that is formed from Quantic to a certain extent, which is QLM, based down in Bristol, which uses some of the nonlinear optics and SPAD detectors mentioned previously to improve their resolution and distance ranging for methane imaging as well. And there's plenty of work going on to investigate other gases, such as hydrogen, which is very topical at the moment. So some interesting applications there from a climate change perspective. Here is an image of an underwater camera unit. So this is looking through turbulent water, through mucky water, things that have high scattering rates, so it would otherwise be obscured. So as David mentioned previously, there's a lot of applications in quantum imaging for seeing through obscurance. So here we're producing not only an image through these difficult sort of environments, but we're actually able to produce these in 3D. So we can convert this. This is in effect a point cloud that can be then converted into things like CAD and BIM models and such like. We see a number of applications here in things like the assessment, structural monitoring of wind turbines out at sea. And various other applications in civils where you'll encounter a lot of obscured situations. Again, LiDAR, fog, snow, rain, and dealing with these sort of situations. So I thought I'd give you a couple of our lab results as well, along with the other images previously. So here is an interesting aspect of computational quantum imaging. So here we've taken some of the learnings from our SPAD detectors. In the top left, in A and B, we are using a very low resolution. It's just a 16 pixel 4x4 detector chip, which is found in a lot of mobile phones, conventional mobile phones, at an incredibly low price point. You know, you're talking sort of pennies almost at this point. And we're pairing it up with a Kinect camera, which is commercially available now. Nothing too wild and expensive, and we're doing some machine learning through neural network training the correlations between the two results. And then from performing this correlation, we have our predictions in ENF. What we're trying to extract here is the pose and position of the characters involved. And then we can actually transition that into a three-dimensional sort of profile, and finally in G. So you not only have the pose and position of these characters, but you have them in a sort of a three-dimensional space. So a lot of applications here in things such as health and safety monitoring. So if these units are extremely cheap, you can imagine these attached in a number of different areas to do things like making sure that correct procedures and protocols are being undertaken, if people are getting close to dangerous security barriers, even if you're just monitoring people's behaviors in terms of making sure they're sort of being healthy, if they're being active, if people are sitting at their in their chairs for too long. For crowd monitoring, you can imagine the applications here for things like concerts and so on and so forth, where you want to understand people's behaviors on larger scales. You'll also note that because we're only assessing in such low resolutions in the posture of the people, you avoid a lot of the concerns around privacy and such like as well. So it's a fairly secure system on that front too. So that's an interesting application that's come from quantum imaging, where we've done a lot of our learning from our single photon detectors. Here's another very interesting application. It's one of my favorites. So you'll see on the far right, there is an image of a syringe, and then above that, what looks like 3 circles. So the 3 circles is actually a microscope image of the end of the syringe, and what we've put inside is a single, well, 2 fiber optics really. And what we're doing is we're actually transferring a live video stream in which produces 3-dimensional images, as you can see in the point cloud, down a single fiber. Now, usually when you have a borescopic imaging, you have to have 1 fiber per pixel, which is why the borescopes get fairly chunky, but each fiber here is the width of a human hair. So you can imagine the sort of very tight places that we can put these. So for example, we can stick them inside a needle, and there's a lot of medical applications here. So if you're performing, lung inspections, heart surgeries, no longer do you have to have lots of invasive effects to be diagnosed, to be assessed. You can have a video produced just through a syringe. Equally, from a manufacturing perspective, you can image in extremely tight scenarios. You can imagine how small of a gap you could get a syringe or a single fiber into things like engine casings and such like. You could also integrate the design within the product itself. So as long as you've got a hair's width of fiber optic that you can integrate within the design, you can stick a camera at the end at any point and produce an inspection. So these images are in the lab. This is our research associate Peter, who's doing some nice waving, and this is all in real time as well. So some great images there, which shows a lot of promise, and the quality of these images is only improving. And again, we're using our learnings in terms of our optics, our computational assessments, and our single photon detectors to ever improve these sort of applications. So in terms of how you might get involved, obviously I'll be around for the breakout rooms later, so happy to speak there. Quantic is also fully funded through EPSRC, and we do have an industrial partnership fund as well, to the tune of about 2 million. So we can match fund a lot of the work that industry provides to us. So if you are interested in a specific application that I've talked about today, or maybe you've got a couple of questions that you'd like to explore further, then we can match fund that up to the sum of £1 million, which is quite exciting to offer. And we work across a range of universities across the UK. And we'd be really excited to hear about some of the applications and show you some more figures later on. So that will be me in terms of my presentation today, and I look forward to speaking to you all later.
Thank you so much, Chris. That was a brilliant presentation. So you can catch up Chris later on in the breakout room for more information on Quantic and quantum imaging for manufacturing. So our last speaker, and thank you so much, Nick, for bearing with us. So we'll hear now for another great speaker, Nick Pappas, Head of Business Development at the STFC Hartree Data Center on quantum computing and machine learning. Over to you, Nick.
Yes, absolutely. Let me know if you're able to see my slides.
Yes, we can.
All right, hopefully they work. Okay, so hello everyone, and thank you for joining us on this quantum webinar. My name is Nick Pappas. I'm Business Development Manager for the Hartree Center. The Hartree Center is a government-backed high-performance computing, data analytics, and artificial intelligence research facility focusing on industry-led challenges. Our mission is to work with UK industry and accelerate the adoption of digital technologies like HPC, big data science, AI, and machine learning, as well as other emerging technologies like quantum computing. We want to get these technologies into the hands of industry and help solve those real-life challenges that industry is facing. The Hartree Center does not only provide industry with access to cutting-edge computational platforms, but we also have the people with the right expertise and skill sets, as well as some strategic partnerships to help support those industry-led projects in both traditional computing as well as quantum. We have a growing team of talented scientists and engineers and computer programmers as permanent staff of the Hartree Center, and we work collaboratively with industry to offer a variety of avenues to work together. So our story in quantum begins back in 2014 when the UK government set out its commitment to developing quantum technologies with the announcement of the UK National Quantum Technologies Programme. This is a program that's representing over 1 billion of public and private investment. It's called the NQTP, and it's designed to bring together academia, industry, and government to accelerate the transition of quantum technologies in the UK and open up opportunities for British businesses to unlock new capabilities that can make a real difference in everyday lives. At Hartree, we pride ourselves of being at the forefront of digital technologies and for helping UK industry embrace state-of-the-art technologies. And quantum is an area where we think many businesses can benefit from. So it all started when one of our industry collaborators, Ocado, asked us to help them tackle a challenge through use of quantum computing. And we took that as an opportunity within Hartree to be involved with quantum technologies. We started by utilizing D-Wave quantum annealers and later acquired a quantum learning machine from Atos. We established a partnership with IBM Quantum, who is one of the world leaders in quantum computing. And more recently, we announced the Hartree National Center for Digital Innovation program. HNCDI is a £210 million program funded by the UK government, which is also complementing the NQTP and forming a key aspect of UKRI's overall investment into quantum-related research and innovation. Through a collaboration between Hartree and IBM, HNCDI supports and enables UK businesses to acquire the skills, knowledge, and technical capability required to adopt and integrate new digital technologies like high-performance computing, data analytics, AI technologies, and quantum computing. So in quantum, we do quite a lot of work with process optimizations. For example, a lot of work with warehouse distribution, process optimizations to improve speed and efficiency of deliveries through improving packaging, storage, logistics, automation, routing, planning, and product transportation, as well as preventative maintenance and dealing with downtime. Another area in quantum where we do quite a lot of work is quantum machine learning with applications like automation for visual inspections in engineering and digital pathology imaging in healthcare. We utilize quantum for accelerating calculations like computational fluid dynamics and finite element analysis to help design better products, for example, in instances where we want to have design for manufacturing, or support materials discovery, including protein folding, protein structure prediction, and polymer formations. In general, we are sector agnostic, and we welcome projects from any sector and irrespective of company size. Having said that, some sectors that we are currently involved in quantum include, as I mentioned, warehouse and supply chain management, life sciences and pharma. For example, we do high throughput screening work for drug discovery, automotive and aerospace, for example, optimizing design of components, and chemistry materials discovery. Some of the key achievements of the Hartree Center in Quantum include the recently announced HNCDI program, which has the benefit of significantly de-risking UK industry involvement with cutting-edge digital technologies, including quantum. Another achievement is our partnership and collaborative work with IBM Quantum, which gives us access to their cutting-edge quantum computers, as well as people expertise. Importantly, we were successful in running our first real-life route optimization problem on an IBM quantum computer, a promising result, as we can use quantum computing in a real-life scenario to demonstrate the speed and efficiency benefits of quantum. Lastly, our focus on blending quantum with traditional computing to create those hybrid workflows that can use the best of both worlds. Taking together these milestones enable us to offer a holistic approach to helping industry embrace quantum computing and ease their involvement with emerging digital technologies. We want industry to really embrace digital technologies and move forward with their digital transformation journeys. We want them to gain access to our systems and expertise, and we want the outcomes to have lasting impact and be adopted by those organizations. To achieve this, we offer a variety of collaborative avenues. One of the biggest things we do is collaborative R&D projects tailored around a specific challenge that our collaborator is facing. Such projects can either be commercial, grant-funded, or part of a program like HNCDI. Additionally, we offer platform as a service access to our systems. We have a portfolio of digital assets that can be licensed by industry, and we offer training and skill transfer opportunities. So closing with a call to action, if you have a digital transformation challenge that you would like to discuss with us in quantum or traditional computing, feel free to send me an email. I'll put the details in the chat box. And then we can have a discussion to understand how Hartree can help with your specific challenge and what is the best collaborative route forward. Thank you for your attention, and I hope we catch up soon.
Thank you so much for this brilliant presentation, Nick. And thank you very much to all our speakers this morning. These were really some amazing outlooks into quantum technology in its broader sense and how it's relevant to manufacturing and the different challenges it is trying to tackle. So I have been a bit ambitious in terms of the timeline, and just so out of interest of time, maybe we can move to breakout rooms, as you will have plenty of time to ask our speaker questions, to network, to exchange contacts, to learn more about businesses and the different use cases and the different capabilities and offering on quantum for manufacturing. So thank you so much to our audience and to our speakers today. This was really some amazing and brilliant presentations.